Going home for my son. I glanced behind me for an instant and he was gone. I was torn between staying here where he last saw me and running about, scouring the station for him. He was a child. He counted on me. Well, every father loses a son at some point, and every son a father. I hoped he might find his way back to me. I recognized nothing in the station. No landmark shops, no architecture, no familiar dug-up flooring. I let myself be carried along outside. I panicked and saw Donald Trump on a second-story balcony among a crowd of Republican stockbrokers yelling out market reports, each as meaningless as the last, to a group of Democratic stockbrokers shouting back from another balcony. The debate was in good fun. Trump stood aside, looking dull and angry, out of it. How would a child survive in a world with Donald Trump? Not an idle question. Photographs might help, I thought. My son had wanted to be an artist once. I pulled out a camera, pressed the buttons. It clicked and beeped, but gave no sign that it was working. It wearied me to think that my getting lost damaged it. The camera had been attuned to me at my best, me with my son, my family intact, the world before us. The camera of family values betrayed me. Above the skyscrapers were pale blue suspension bridges arcing across the sky. I hoped they would lead me out of the city or back into it, but reconsidered. Solving the question of where I was should precede setting foot on the bridge. So I walked a while, and when I got overheated, took off my pants. It was easier to walk that way. I tied the legs around my waist like a sweater for people who would object to my nakedness. Nobody in the crowd surging by seemed to notice. They dreamed themselves naked so often, they assumed I was dreaming. But grief permits no dreams. The mob shouldered me to the edge of the island, to a railroad tunnel where I met an impressive character, a tall black hobo, whose conversation drifted and finally settled into a rambling monologue. I stood to go, but in the shadows he called out, "So what did I teach you?" I replied, "Milk is for grown men and Coke is for babies." He nodded proudly, and I entered the tunnel. Midway along, I found myself on a steep path on the side of a hill. Below me, hiking through tall grass, were two lean men wearing hats. I called out for directions, but they pretended not to hear. When the younger man, closest to me, finally turned his head, he derided me for wasting my time and his. "Where is your boy?" he cried. I told him directly, "My son is lost, and I am lost. I need help to get home, and pray he will get help as well." He spat out a mouthful of directions, contempt in every turn, measurement, and street name. I have a poor memory, so I repeated what he'd said, painstakingly pronouncing the 3 street names in the same manner he used. "Cordelia," I finished in disgust. His approval would have meant so much then, but he merely said, "Cornelia," called to his companion, and walked off. And just at that moment, the red stone parapet that had been supporting the path on which I stood splintered and dropped me onto the grass where the hikers had been. I lay face down in the dirt, stunned and frightened by my fall, assuming I had given them a proper excuse to damn me. But by then they were gone. I only saw the grass waving behind their backs. According to the directions, I was far downtown. Heading north would get me home. My son must have found his way long ago, probably, and told my folks that I was still out there somewhere, thrashing about in the weeds. I worried they might count me lost. I felt ashamed. I needed to hurry to ease their fears, for they are ancient and mute now. I followed the directions to the letter of my memory. Everything seemed to be going well. If it were the Divine Comedy, I would have been pointed toward the Paradiso. Then Broadway opened before me, and I knew if I only turned uptown in time, I would be home. But appearances had deceived me so often. I decided to stick to the blueprint I'd gotten from the hiker, who on reflection resembled an older, angrier version of my son. It took me to a snowy hill where a young couple in matching gray sweaters and pants were snapping photographs of their 3-year-old, dressed identically. They were attempting to throw her a colored cloth tied to a hoop and photograph her as she stooped to retrieve it and play with it in the snowdrift. I picked it up and tossed it right to her, as I had many times to my good son, to signify that I was safe and friendly, strange as I might appear. I knew I resembled Odysseus returning wounded and filthy from Troy, and the child resembled Shirley Temple. She laughed, and I knew I would be fine, my son fine, in this world cut expressly for happy endings. With that thought, the towering bridges to the future reappeared above the snowy peaks, traced in small lights, hundreds, thousands, stretching out into the unknown like stars. And once again, I held back, asking myself whether now was the time. I had gained knowledge and strength from my ramble. I found my feet on a bridge then, but not one of the blue bridges, a footbridge over a pond, teeming with pond life, with water lilies. A confident awareness that it wasn't about being fine overtook me. Life would test me, and I knew I had to be ready. I had forfeited the old illusion of security, and with it, the bitter knowledge that my existence amounted to nothing more than a cloud of vague, disjointed sensations left me